What are some dark secrets about the porn industry? I used to live with this chick in Seattle who did webcam porn, in a cubicle designed to look like a bedroom. Their office had about 50 of these in it. The place was in a nice, quiet neighborhood, and it was above a children's indoor soccer school. Not very dark, I know, but it's all I've got. When I was 21, back when the internet was really starting to pick up steam, I was fortunate enough to know how to use digital editing software. One of my first jobs was editing gay porn and designing the cover art for the DVDs of a big company. This was interesting and wildly amusing to my friends because I am not gay. I was very good friends with an excellent camera operator, and sometimes I'd end up on set helping him out for extra cash. I was very surprised to realize that, while AIDS is a very real concern in gay porn, most actors chose not to use condoms, and those who wanted to were aggressively persuaded not to use condoms. In fact, I had seen some fired from a set for wanting to use them. The director would always say it's more realistic or more intense or it's better raw, our customers want raw. And he was a complete asshole about it. Lots of young guys went through that company, and most who were new and just looking for a quick buck were, in my opinion, unaware of the risks they were taking. There was zero testing. Eventually I said I'm not working on set if this is the practice. So they canned me. Most major porn sites are owned by one company called MindGeek. When I was 19, I was pretty much strapped for cash in a new city, and took whatever gigs I could. One was as a driver for a video agency. I basically picked girls up from the airport and took them to their shoot. Some of these girls were scared shitless, and I'd tell them, I can always tell them I couldn't find you, and you can go home right now. After the third girl asked me to pull over, I stopped. That shit was hard on me as a teenager. My friend in the industry said that it's very common during shoots for both men and women's underwear to disappear. He said many women can't find their underwear after a shoot because there's always some creep sniping them. A friend of mine worked as one of those chat girls on websites where you pay per message to chat with hot girls. He's a guy. So I'm pretty late to this party, but I actually used to work in the industry several years ago. One company based in Tucson, Arizona, another major one based in Canada, and then a smaller affiliate network also based in Canada. Funny enough, all three were eventually bought by MindGeek, Pornhub, RedTube, YouPorn, etc. I built TGPs, MGPs, those free sites that would give you samples, did some editing of videos, modded a couple tube sites, and submitted stuff to larger free gallery networks. Affiliate stuff. I've gone to industry shows, AVN awards, expos, etc. I got out of it like around 2010 or 11. It's foggy. The porn must flow, new content would come in, filmed/shot, daily, and it needed to be edited/published ASAP. It didn't matter what the talent looked like. Hot, drugged out of their gourds, crying, happy, questionable age, raped, didn't matter. The company paid for it and it all had to be used. If I objected to questionable material, I was told to ignore it and do my job. Yeah, wow, this is super dark. So let me try to lighten the mood a bit with the funniest thing I've ever seen in porn. There was a video, filmed in like the late 80s of an E.T. porn. Like the movie E.T. It was a woman in full E.T. makeup, like actually pretty good, the head, body, everything except for her vagina. So you think, oh that's weird, but it gets better. Everyone else in the shoot was dressed in Victorian outfits. So it's a movie that apparently took place in the Victorian era, and men and women dressed up like that were all taking turns fucking E.T. If the site FUKT still exists, you could probably find it on there. So there you go, good night. Very few companies maintain a 2257 database. 2257 is a US law where companies are required to keep records of the ages of all the talent they use. In one company we had two ladies whose entire job, 8 hours a day, was to view, log, and store all the IDs that came in. No, I'm not joking. 5 days a week, 8 hours a day they were viewing and logging all the ads from new talent that would come in. That's how much porn was shot and how much of it was from new talent. It consisted of the model holding their ads next to their faces. These photos were the first ones before any of the porn photos, so while I was building out galleries I would also see them. 4 times out of 10 the model has their thumb over their date of birth. Prolapses happen. When the stuff is shot it's shipped off to the main office to be edited. Like I said, they shoot everything. Nothing is tossed. So if there's an anal sex scene and a model's ass falls out, it's on camera. For the majority of the stuff it's edited out, but the footage is saved just in case. When I say that, who knows if the company is going to release some uber fetish site down the road. Everything is saved. I've seen girls who've done one too many anal scenes start to cry and panic when their ass falls out because they think their career is done. On set, nurse sometimes would just push it back in and they'd switch to something else to film. It's a very closed door industry. Everyone knows everyone. Affiliates like to only be called by their online screen names and get offended if you call them by their actual name. There were industry message boards back in the day. One that stands out is gofuckyourself.com or something, where everyone knew everyone and had agendas against each other. Ever have to meet someone in person and call them Batman or Hairy Twatter to their faces? I have. It's unpleasant. Day one I was told I needed to come up with a name and I thought they were joking. No. It's quite serious. They're all looking to stab each other in the back for higher payouts, scam the system, or accuse others of whatever. If you got footage of one of them doing coke or a producer the company didn't really like doing drugs or fucking or whatever, then you were told to save that footage, again, just in case. It's an industry full of middle schoolers who got rich from DVDs. People are weird about their porn. You know how if you ever worked in a restaurant or fast food place and people get crazy or insanely angry when their food isn't exactly how they want it? Porn is worse. If you don't post stuff daily or it's not up to their standards, you'll get hate mail, death threats, etc. Guys like to submit their own videos to gaytube sites who might not even be gay. I had to moderate these videos. I'm not gay BTW, meaning daily we'd get user submissions and I'd either allow them to be posted or denied them. I also moderated the straight tube sites. Majority of the time there'd be messages attached to said videos asking if I watched them, what I thought about them, did I jerk off to it, etc. Not a whole lot of women making submissions, but 8 times out of 10 it's dudes. These are homemade videos, by the way. I saw a lot of homemade rape, child porn, borderline snuff, guys injecting their balls and dicks with stuff, drug use, etc. Oh, and actual incest. Not like the son I'm stuck in the washing machine. Incest, but actual. This is my sister and she's going to suck my dick, or moms jerking off their sons, dads having sex with their sons, daughters, etc. How do I know it's real? Remember that 2257 stuff? Yeah. Majority of it doesn't make its way online because it'll be denied, but it does happen, a lot. I think that's most of the main stuff off the top of my head. Like I said, I haven't done it in over a decade and I've switched careers several times. I'm desensitized to it now and won't watch it at all. Edit. So after a couple of hours replying to people and what have you, I realized there was a whole Twitter thread a while ago with people who had to literally fight with porn sites to get their childhood rape videos off of their sites. One person said that the video posted was of them being raped as a toddler. To quote a Redditor's comment from yesterday, "What a horrible day to be literate." There is a YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly where the guy interviews all sorts of people, porn actors, prostitutes, addicts, etc., to try and find a common denominator in their life as how they fell there. The porn industry is awful for the men and women. Sure, it looks fun, but many turn into drug addicts, are abused, have very low self-esteems. The men inject meds into their penis in order to perform when Viagra does not work, and lots of suicide and drug overdoses. Was a documentary on Netflix called Hot Girls Wanted, and it was all about how these sketchy porn producers recruit girls who are barely 18 through Craigslist with promises of making $5,000 per month. They follow these two girls who move from the Midwest to Florida and start immediately working. Within a few weeks, one of them has to go to the hospital because she has a growth on her vagina. The nurse told her it happens a lot to women who have a lot of sex. They also have to pay all of their expenses, including clothes and makeup, so they barely make any money. They also talked to a woman who was in the industry for a few months, and basically she had no protection from her manager. She said she flew to Texas or something to do a shoot, and when she got there it was just one guy in an apartment with a camera on a tripod. She wanted to leave but thought the guy would hurt her or that she would get in trouble if she left, so she did it even though she really didn't want to. Another woman left her company and started her own because she said she was often humiliated and degraded during shoots. She said they make you feel inhuman. It was an interesting but overall depressing documentary. One of my friends worked as a cameraman for porn, and he said that basically every porn set smells like sweat and shit. There was a documentary shown on Channel 4 TV, UK, a few years ago called Hardcore, available on YouTube, which is about a British woman who goes to LA to work in the porn industry. It's horrendous. At about 40 minutes in, she is taken to meet a well-known anal sex porn actor, and has to do a scene with him. At one point, it's too much for her and she runs off set, as she feels she's being abused and can't take it. He tries to persuade her to return, getting ever more verbally abusive towards her, until eventually she agrees to return and finish the scene. At this point the film crew broke the fourth wall, because they felt that she was being coerced against her will and they couldn't stand by and watch her being raped, and within 5 minutes they got her out of the house and to safety. Sadly, the man who was grooming her in the industry got her back to work doing gonzo movies. I know that in a lot of the hardcore Japanese torture porns, they did not make directions clear when they let female actresses sign the contract. So these actresses had no idea what they would be doing, and it's too late to find out. They can't just say I quit / I can't do this during filming either, since the liquidated damages are extremely expensive. It's just rape. I had a relative who worked with women and children protection services. They told me how dirt poor parents force their kids to have sex with foreigners to have money they usually spend on gambling. A former porn actress came and spoke in a class I was taking in law school about regulation of vice. She said that the brief scenes after gangbangs where the actresses say things like "yes I loved, I would do it again" aren't legitimate. The actresses aren't paid until they say that, even if it's not how they feel. Probably representative of a lot of other aspects of the industry as well. According to some sources, cam models in certain countries who work in cam studios are more or less forced by their pimps to cam every day for hours. Some even say that some of those studios are owned by the mob and that they also use it for money laundering. I have an acquaintance that is a male porn actor, and he told me some stuff. For one, he said sometimes he has to do gay porn even though he's straight. He also told me he had to get injections right in the dick to keep his erection. Doesn't seem exactly fun. Well over a decade ago I watched a British documentary about the porn industry in the UK. There was a couple that gave some pretty nasty details. The guy said that virtually all guys have to do gay porn to make enough money or get into the straight porn circuit. The girl said that frequent and rough sex caused a lot of damage to her bits. She was incontinent and often had erectile prolapse. Edit, I think the scene was from a documentary series called The Dark Side of Porn that aired on Channel 4, UK, in 2005. I haven't yet been able to find the exact scene though. It wasn't the Louis Theroux episodes. His docs were filmed in the US. They still work when on their period and stick a makeup sponge up there that they pull out at the end of the workday. You should watch the interview with porn actors on YouTube. Very enlightening. A friend of mine was in a couple of films. She was a heavy drug user and barely remembers her time in it. And now she lives with constant anxiety of people finding out. She also said makeup on some of the girls is just to hide needle marks. Edit to clarify. She was in a bad place and doing a lot of drugs. It was consensual to go into porn. And yes, she has lots of counseling and is running an excellent fruit-veg store now. The most famous porn film of all time is Deep Throat, a movie so ubiquitous that it actually saw release in regular theaters. The whistleblower of the infamous Watergate scandal even used it as his code name. A lot of people don't realize that the female star of the film, Linda Borman, was blackmailed and coerced into taking the role. She later said, "Every time someone watches that movie, they're watching me being raped." I distinctly remember some old Nerdist Network podcast, can't remember if this was the main one or the one with Pete Holmes or W.E., but there was a guest who learned video editing by being an assistant editor for a guy who cut porn movies in the 90s. The day he quit that gig was when they were editing a cum shot scene and saw the dude had blood mixed in the semen, and the lead editor went, "Aha. Syphilis." And just made sure they color corrected it to make sure no one could tell in the finished product. They take shots into their dicks to stay hard. Direct ties to the sex trafficking industry, though that's pretty obvious. I don't really have much to add, but back in high school this girl dropped out and became a porn actress. Her first video came out while we were still in high school, 16 years/0. It was produced by a well-known company. They had to have known her real age. Either way, it's gross. Video is still up and she's made many more in the years after. Sometime if they look really young, they are. I made a comment in r/tip off my penis about people being careful about consuming porn from Japan where the girls look uncomfortable or scared. It's because a lot of them are. Their family, a relative, they themselves owe money to the wrong people and are forced into porn. When I mentioned how widespread sex trafficking and the like is in some porn, I was instantly banned for spreading lies about sex trafficking. Years ago a former porn star, most people suspect Cody Lane, did an anonymous AMA where she revealed a ton of the terrible things that can happen in the industry. This comment she made about a scene she did really highlights how dark it can be, as she was gang raped to pay off gambling debts. I did a scene that David Stanley directed with Brian Shawwood, Sasha and Joel Lawrence and Andrew Andretti, which went way too far. I was dating Sasha at the time and had lost a lot of money in Vegas because I'm very compulsive. I was living with Sasha, he was very abusive, but I had always been in abusive relationships since I was young. I lost my virginity at 8 to my stepdad, and I got to the point where I thought men treated me bad because they loved me so much and it was just passion. Which is what my mom had told me. That when a man is passionate and doesn't want to lose you, sometimes he strikes out. Anyways, I needed money bad and he arranged for us to do a really rough scene. A rough gangbang with all of them. I knew it was going to be rough, but it went nuts. Nuts. With them telling me things like I wouldn't get paid if I said stop, that it's amateur hour if I make people show up for a shoot and then pull out, etc etc. So I went through with the scene. It was very painful, very rough, very crazy, and at one point I felt disconnected from my body because the anal was so painful. When it was over I shivered for days and started having panic attacks. Shortly after I quit, but they kept trying to get me to come back because they were afraid I'd talk. The scene was never released until 2 years later when I was still doing work, because if it had been my last scene, they said it would have showed that they had gone too far. But because I stayed in the business after the scene was filmed, it proved somehow that the film was not that bad and that I was just acting. That scene really messed with my head though, and after that I got a reputation for being a cute girl who would do anything. And pretty soon I could get booked for nothing but rough scenes. Nobody wanted to see me in boy girl or girl girl anymore, they wanted to see me in crazy rough sex. I still cry and have nightmares about it to this day. A lot of those extremely large penises are fake, or they use a penis pump in order to look larger. Check casting and girls to porn. Them dark. This really makes me hate porn. This could help people for sure. There's an entire pipeline in the porn industry that mirrors human trafficking, to be completely honest. I live in a city where porn production is legal. I was approached once to be on set and basically serve as a sort of house mom on the set in order to make the girls feel more comfortable. It was an easy gig. I would have seen a cool $57K for doing really little. Honestly, I was going to do it. I was really pro porn back then. Now, not so much. I learned how these girls were sourced. A huge part of it was that the production company had connections to drug dealers that would often target and groom barely legal drug users that are clearly troubled and forming a dependency. Through this dependency, they're exploited. When I mean barely legal, I mean fucking high schoolers that just turned 18. The porn being produced was violent. It was one of those studios that focused on rough sex. They needed another woman on set to console and comfort these girls because they were tired of them having panic attacks on set following it. I was about to take on the job. I was like 24 at the time and that type of easy money sounded great, but I'm sure I would have been groomed into doing this just as well. I was so fucking disgusted that my entire outlook on porn and honestly, sex work as a whole changed completely. I'll be damned if anyone really tries to tell me it's empowering, especially to women. I think the darkest secret about the porn industry is that you don't really know if what you're consuming is ethical. The concept of consent in the studio is blurry. Once the camera starts rolling, things can and often go awry and there isn't much to say once it does, and if you're talking about a situation like the one I was exposed to, I don't even think those girls really understand if and when their consent is being violated. It being a transactional act versus an organic one brings a whole slew of changes in the definition of what consent means in that context, and there's plenty of porn stars that have come out to talk about this very thing. Reading through these threads is honestly a great way to lose the addiction to porn, once you realize how synthetic and dehumanized it is. It seems like R34 drawings are probably the most ethically made porn you can get, judging by these replies. A common drug producers give to actors is called Triple H, stands for horny, hyper, happy, which is a mix of Ritalin, Ambien, and ecstasy, which makes the user seem completely awake and willing even if they are not. I don't have anything to offer about the industry as I have never been involved in it, but the best quote I have ever heard about it was, "If emotional scars were visible, porn would be impossible to watch." It actually took a lawsuit threat to get FUD to take down a video of a girl being assaulted in her sleep. Unsurprisingly, porn stars are incredibly sad and it is not glamorous. That when porn stars do AMAs, they aren't going to say anything that hurts their product. People shit on Woody for Rampart, but hardly anyone says anything about the constant tee-hee, I love fucking when they appear to promote their sites and videos. I had a friend who was the finisher for porn. When he came, he would naturally ejaculate loads, so he would help out his friend who directed pornos and he would finish on the women but not actually have sex with them. Porn in the 80s when I came of age. Wow, those two people are having sex. Porn in 2021, that guy is gangbanging his stepdaughter with a fitness instructor and two landscapers after she was caught shoplifting. I'm not gonna lie, this thread has made me very disappointed in humanity. That hard fucking slapping sound is someone in post-production slapping a couple of chicken breasts together. Boneless, skinless. Modern porn distributors/studios are likely 100% aware of the fact that teenagers and children are accessing their content, and are actively making content to appeal to them so they can get more hits and ad revenue. At one point, some of the most popular search terms on Pornhub were Minecraft and Fortnite. That should speak for itself. A lot of the music in porn from the 70s was recorded by some of the best soul and funk musicians, but they all used fake names in the credits, so it's hard to know exactly who they were. But rumors about the Funk Brothers, the house band of Motown that played on countless hits from the Isley Brothers to Jackson 5, recording some, has been floating around since way back. The recruitment process is extremely predatory. The makers and shakers in the prom industry are staggeringly wealthy, and they have learned to exploit the endless array of good-looking or well-endowed young people who want to fuck for money on camera. Our actors were also rigorously STD screened before each shoot and once a month while on contract. The legal department in a real porn company is staggeringly competent, because they have to navigate so many laws in so many areas. Contracts can really be a double-edged sword. Most are negotiated to benefit the firm, not the actor. The more I read this thread, the more it becomes horrifying and sad. That a lot of female performers, especially the ones who do rough scenes, were sexually abused as children. I've heard horror stories of girls giving blowjobs or straight up having sex as young as 6 years. There is so much trafficking and slavery around porn. Some clips on Pornhub are honestly terrifying, and you can tell it's coercion. I don't understand why it's not better regulated. I guess the public really only value their own titillation over the safety and freedom of sex slaves. It's awful. Edit, thank you for the gold, my first ever award. They use soap and other things to make fake cum. This isn't a secret, more of a question, but does anyone know how they keep STDs from spreading? BC, a lot of porn is without protection. Racism. Porn loves to hire Asian girls, but rarely ever Asian guys for straight shoots. They claim to be the most progressive industry in the world, but they're really not. I'm not really in the industry, but anyone can tell by observation. Can someone actually in the industry shed some light on this? Edit, typo. This has enlightened me to how nasty people really are. I'm leaving now. There are men and women who model for a very niche fetish of porn. Think sexualizing food. They are forced to smile on camera and pretend to enjoy that, even though they are super grossed on the inside and very sad about having to do that. One of the clips I watched, I heard the man telling the girl, if you smile while doing this and don't cry while doing this, I will be able to sell more videos. There's a whole lot of rape. If you've ever jerked off to porn, you've probably jerked off to a woman being raped at least once. Even professional studios have been caught flying young desperate women from one side of the country to the other under the false pretense of it being a modeling job, and then telling them it's porn, and if they refuse to do it they'll leave them stranded 4,000 miles from home. The reason Pornhub cracked down so hard on unverified accounts a while back was because there were dozens and dozens of amateur videos of women and men being drugged and raped, including one pretty famous case of a 14-year-old girl being kidnapped and forcibly raped that Pornhub refused to take down for years. From what I have read and documentaries I've seen, drugs are real bad in the business. The money isn't all that good because of the internet now and an endless sea of porn coming from overseas. Once you become known, it is almost impossible to get out. Some of the female porn stars get famous and stop with the movies and go on the strip club circuit. One school cafeteria lady lost her job when someone found a few old movies she had done. I wondered how they found them. Even if you've used reputable sites like Pornhub, it's very likely you've watched rape and underage porn. It just was never labeled as such. Cocaine and steroids, to name just a few. Well, only somewhat recently Pornhub made a rule about being able to identify yourself, and so millions of videos were removed because they failed to comply. So that really raises the question of how many videos were made illegally with children. The porn industry isn't a clear-cut thing. It's connected to the spectrum of stripping, prostitution, human trafficking, and a bunch of much more benign things like acting, modeling, and other stuff you'd never associate with porn. I had an ex-GF who started stripping when she was 15, lied about her age. She got shit-faced on vodka to work up the courage to go out on stage the first time. She did it for about 9 years, eventually doing some porn videos, then figured out how to get out and make a living elsewhere. However, in the depths of the Great Recession, she lost her job and had to scramble for work. She ended up driving younger girls to and from strip clubs for protection. She learned that a lot of these girls were illegally in the US and essentially trafficked, living together in a dorm room type environment, their movements beholden to their keepers, with little autonomy. It was eye-opening. Child trafficking and trafficking of adult women. Sexually transmitted diseases. Physical abuse going unquestioned for money. Hard drugs and shots to keep going. Shit in places you'd never expect. Underpaid, overworked workers. Creates unrealistic expectations about sex for any of its viewers. It's just a completely fucked up industry. Child porn. There is an extreme big network of professional child porn industry going on. The fucked up thing is that there are no dark secrets. All of the dark stuff is out in the open, everyone knows about it, and no one is doing anything about it. There is a ton of abuse, a ton of drugs being forced on people, a lot of exploitation, ties to human trafficking, statutory RP, and often much worse. It does not really matter what site you use, they are not effective at moderating content when they want to, and most have shown somewhere between complete indifference to abject refusal to manage their content. Much like mined diamonds, porn is, for all intents and purposes, an unethical product to consume. Some of it is ethically neutral, but a lot of it is not, and you have no way of figuring out which is which. To be clear, I am not against porn conceptually. There is a world where we could have ethical porn that caters to basically any kink you can imagine, but we do not live in that world. I am married to a former adult movie actress. I will never spill her secrets, but she still has nightmares from the industry. She still has stalkers from the short time she was in too. Webcam industry specific. You spend $100. Cam company takes about 50%. $50 goes to the account of the model. In some places, accounts are owned by a studio who will give the model about 50% of what they earn. Of the $50 that hits the account, the model makes about $25. Some studios also charge for rent and usage of equipment. That $25 they earn from your $100 goes to paying off a $100 a month bill just to work. Helix Studios, a gay porn studio, actively starts window shopping for guys when they are 16 to 17. Ugh, I feel sick to my stomach after reading all these comments. The nurse or doctor on call to dispense pain medication and a few stitches when the double anal with two thick guys hanging 11 inches tears something in the female performer. The girl who shows up thinking she's just going to be topless and literally gets threatened into signing a waiver saying choking slap sex, and if she doesn't do it, two guys will kick the shit out of her. The people trafficked into sex work, the cokehead boyfriend pimping a girl out because he owes some people too much money, or can't afford his next fix. Got her hooked too, so she will be readily complying. The girl who gets 137 guys to gangbang her and risks AIDS, and gets stiffed on the payment while the video goes on to make tons of money. It's a vile business. Sorry, this is not an answer, but are there porn companies that are transparent, and have a reputation for being safe to work for and such? Friend of a friend was an actress known for her ass. Before she shot an anal scene, she'd starve herself/be liquid diet only for weeks so she looked skinny enough on camera, and so there basically wasn't anything in her system to possibly get messy. She was miserable and weak with hunger by the day of the shoot. Another woman I know in passing is a huge name in porn, although she's officially retired from performing. She once had to take time off because a director pushed her to shoot a scene so intense she ripped her asshole. Some female adult performers really do love their jobs, but in many cases, the woman in hetero porn is really not having a good time. I'd any dark secrets about the porn industry, but what happens if a female porn star gets pregnant from male porn star after doing a shoot? Are there laws, company/government, that state what will happen to it? My time to shine? So my ex works for an adult actor named Larkin Love. When people sign up to her subscription services, obviously a lot of the content is pre-made ahead of schedule so you can get on the ball uploading it later. What is really kinda messed up is that when these men sign up, or women, sometimes women do also, believe it or not, but obviously more uncommon, they will send a message through the platform, and you are essentially talking to her crew acting as her, and they try to upcharge the customer as much as possible by saying things like, if you send me this $70, I'll send you a little video just for you to finish up for me. Customer generally sends it way more than you think, and they get another pre-made video under the guise that it was specifically made for them. So the crew's goal is to upcharge, and during their shifts each girl that works for her makes somewhere around $45 to $60 an hour, working 4 to 6 hour shifts. The practices are pretty deceptive from beginning to end, honestly. Especially when you get to lonelier people that are running basically off of pure testosterone and give way more than they can afford to, under what is essentially a lie the whole time. All the women are under non-disclosure agreements. Edit, typo. There was a lovely porn star, Amy Donovan, who looked way too cute and way too funny to be doing the deed on camera, if that makes any sense. You could tell she wasn't really into it half the time, which bothers the hell out of me to this day. But her final scene was supposedly her versus a bunch of guys, and she ended up with anal fissures, 2 different infections, pinworm, other parasites. And it was just from this one rough scene. She ended up coming clean about it on an internet forum and said she's even quit dancing and she's back to being a Susie homemaker. No one deserves that experience. They aren't actually stuck. Most MILFs aren't even mothers. I really want to quit using porn. This thread is helping me immensely. Herpes. I had an ex, Annette Allen, that did porn and she got herpes. She committed suicide last year. Going through these comments are a roller coaster. Half is about rape/pedophilia/sex trafficking and the other half are they don't actually love each other. Wish there was a serious tag. Abuse and force are much more commonplace than people expect. So many porn stars, especially women, try to convince you porn is healthy, shot in safe and controlled environments, they choose who they film with, the industry is regulated, it's female empowerment etc. Then I read the horror stories in this post. If there is so much abuse in Hollywood, the porn industry has got to be 100x worse. I don't care how hard porn actors try to convince you how much control they think they have. They drug a lot of women. Pretty scary stuff. I don't think it's a secret at all, but there's a lot of coercion involved even in more amateur videos. A friend knew a guy who was told he got a modeling opportunity in the biggest city in my country, so he quit his job and went. He'd never left his small town and it was all expenses paid, etc. He was forced to do a gay porn movie, guy's straight, wasn't paid and wasn't even given a ticket to go back home. He eventually went back to his hometown, but literally everyone had either seen the video firsthand or heard about it, so he couldn't even go out of his house and didn't have the nerve to talk to his family anymore. Last I heard, he was trying to get money to move to a slightly bigger town. They literally ruined his life socially and financially for one movie and didn't even bother actually paying him. I feel like you hear about stories like this all the time, but when it's somewhat close to you, it's truly horrifying. They choose girls who have major issues in life. My friend's niece spent 16 to 18 getting groomed by a child molester to sell her into the sex trade. She got out of that situation and did well with her life until she hit 20. Once she was 20, she got into porn, but not just any porn. She started shooting a ton of stuff with folks that do those. We picked this girl up off the street and paid her for sex videos. In the meantime, she was using drugs pretty heavily. Long story short, she OD'd a couple weeks ago and was declared brain dead. That industry preys on girls who don't know any better and or are just vulnerable enough for them to take advantage of. In the process of my friend's niece turning into a vegetable and basically dying, my friend's family has been trying to get all the videos of her removed, only to be met with legal resistance from the industry. She's fucking dead, take down the videos of what got her there. So glad people are becoming semi-aware of these things. Tired of people pretending that porn is a glamorous industry where young women play the system and rake in tons of cash. It couldn't be further from the truth. There was a cheap porn company ran by 2 guys in the noughties. They'd find guys that were living in group foster homes and turn them into talent scouts, usually finding girls that had ran away from foster care or were just coming out of it to be in these films. A ton of foster kids leave their group home at 18 and literally have nothing to their name. CA and a few other states have recently changed their stipend to 21, but it's still an uphill battle. My ex is a social worker and worked mostly with 17 to 18-year-old girls that were getting into job programs. Almost all of them were being offered deals where they'd make $2K for their first 2 porn shoots, but then it had turned into prostitution so they could use them for both. I only shot some porn a couple times, but I remember I went to this sketchy ass secret apartment building in Inglewood owned by the porn guys. Some of them lived there, and when I showed up for the first shoot there was these sketchy BDSM looking motherfuckers who asked me if I was a dom or sub and were bugging out about getting off the street cause they didn't want people to see them out there and get suspicious. The whole thing was done very hush hush. I honestly didn't expect the porn scene to be so like closeted. It was a very weird vibe tbh. How do you know if it's a forced interaction? They post underage women who are being trafficked. Every time I say it and even post the news article I get downvoted. Sorry to tell you that your favorite porn site has posted illegal content. A lot of women in porn take drugs so they don't feel hurt by Titanic dicks. Probably Tracy Lords, or the AIDS epidemic that pretty much ruined Vivid Video. Many years ago, my firm agreed to redevelop the websites for an adult production company. It was awkward to say the least, but the pay was very good, so of course we did it. We were a little shocked to learn that the stars did not get paid as much as you would think. Like $300 to $400 per session. It turns out the famous ones make their money on sponsorships, not the actual movies. This isn't a secret but a legitimate serious medical question I have no one else to ask. When these women do rough deep throat gagging stuff, doesn't that have long-term medical implications on the small muscles in the back of throat? Swallowing is something you do without thinking about it, but many don't realize just how complicated the back of your throat is. Do these women end up with dysphagia for life after these scenes? Haven't seen this anywhere yet while scrolling, but to a lot of people's surprises, dicks really aren't that big. Very few foot-long penises exist on this planet and they are not natural. In fact, they likely can't get hard naturally either. But the majority of porn stars we see and know are within 5 to 8 inches measured properly. It's just camera tricks and small-handed women. Hopefully this makes some people less self-conscious. I always thought I was small with a slightly above average penis because I was thinking there are men out there with these 9 inches. Really not very common. Very few porn stars have hit that mark. And most people with that gift have erectile issues. Oh, and most of the men get girth surgery. Many porn videos are shot with minors. Here's a literally dark secret: all those buttholes are bleached. Real ones are quite a bit darker. I'm not a porn star yet, but I worked on an Interview a Porn Star show and spoke candidly backstage with a star who was well known at the time. The most notable thing she told me is girls don't really squirt. That's just them peeing on guys. Regular makeup sponges or sea sponges, though sea sponges reportedly are easier to feel when you're fucking someone. I've used them in and out of porn for years and never had an issue. They're not really a problem as long as they're clean when you put them in and actually remember to take them out. I've had exactly 0 guys be able to tell I'm using one. I have spent the last 40 minutes reading comments and posts. Holy shit. Feel like I'm on the Goliath ride at Six Flags and the drop keeps going. Fuck. I need a drink and maybe a joint. Huge amount of the women are drugged to make them compliant. It fuels demand for human trafficking. The porn industry itself doesn't care about underage and literal child pornography, and they only remove it when they are legally forced. The false sense of sex or intercourse. Porn is actually creating an abysmal gap between real sex and porn sex, and sadly it's becoming an addiction and a real problem to say the least. As a gay man, I have watched porn, straight and gay porn. And I have realized that in the past there was a lot of condoms in porn, but suddenly there are a few, if not 0. I won't turn this into a taboo argument about unprotected sex and HIV or something like that, but we need to remember that sex is something private and enjoyable, but taking care of the person you're with. That human connection of being naked with other human, while hearing their heartbeat, hearing their breath, feeling the sweat, it's something beautiful, and it's becoming something cheap and vulgar by providing false expectations of sex and the abuse between men and women. More than a secret is a reality that we're not talking about, and the problem is that there's a lot of young people now with a cell phone, and trust me, they'll get the wrong idea of sex, and I believe that we will stay horrified by the crimes that will come to occur in the future because we are not having the right conversation. When you watch rough porn, usually at the end is a scene with the girls with smeared makeup saying how much fun they had. They literally don't get paid if they don't make the scene at the end. Pretty much so they can't say they got raped even if that's exactly what happened. Bless you for asking this and everyone that answered seriously. The amount of hate I get online for pointing out some of these things is enormous. I hope this will make it a bit easier to criticize and push for regulation of the industry. I've heard online that a lot of the girls that you see are basically involved in sex trafficking, and are tricked into it. Basically, young girl needs money, is offered a job as an actress and is offered a ticket out to the film set in some other state. Upon arriving, finds out she's going to be shooting porn, and is bullied and pressured by the producers to do it, saying she will owe them money for the flight and all this other shit to try and guilt/scare her into shooting the film. They then try and squeeze that and milk as much money out of the girls as possible, and is one of the big arguments for why we shouldn't watch porn. Edit, a singular word. Pretty much all online porn real estate is owned by a company called MindGeek. When someone uploads content to a site, it goes through an automated verification process, facial recognition, etc., before it can get posted to a site. If the content gets flagged, it has to be reviewed by a person to verify that there are no red flags like child porn, gore, rape, snuff, etc. MindGeek has one department with one group of employees that have to verify any flagged content on basically any porn site you'll find online. Those people have a special clause in their insurance for psychological help and therapy because the amount of porn they have to watch on a daily basis fucks their heads up so much that they can no longer perform sexually, get PTSD, develop fucked up fetishes, and other severe mental issues. They don't clean that couch as often as you'd hope. Jackie Treehorn treats objects like women, man. It baffles me that anyone actually watches porn made by those big companies with the so obvious fake sex. I began watching when I was fairly young, and would always filter to homemade stuff. Maybe it's because I'm a girl and desired that real connection between the people. I'm losing faith in humanity here. Well, I can safely say that I'm done with watching porn forever. R34 or personal experiences only. Fucking hell. Rape. So much rape. You know those scenes at the end/beginning of rough sex clips where the actress smiles and says how much she enjoyed it and had always wanted to try whatever hardcore thing they just filmed? Yeah, if they don't say that, they don't get paid. August Ames spoke out about the amount of rape in porn. She later committed suicide. PH regularly keeps up revenge videos, rape, and more. A woman who was raped and had her video posted to PH had to petition to them for 6 months and they still wouldn't take it down, all while the video was being monetized. She eventually had to pretend to be a lawyer to get them to take it down. Porn made $35 billion in 2019. That is billion with a B. A lot of people are watching porn and a lot of people are paying for porn either as consumer or as advertiser.